films with children blowing up because they don't agree with global warming. What a bloody outrage. And then we had this, I love this, we had this big alarmist thing came out recently. Oh, look at Greenland, it's the biggest surface melt, it's unprecedented in Greenland. Same press release. Melting events of this type occur about once every 150 years on average, with the last one happening in 1889. What happened to unprecedented? And by the way, what happened to the one before that one? What caused it? Turbocharged handcarts? And then NASA came out later and said actually there was a massive cyclone that was responsible for most of it. And then you look at the other end, the Antarctic, and it's a record ice cover in 2012. And yet we've got the Colt, and he's in the carbon credits and bloody gravy train. This is the Prime Minister of Australia, Julia Gillard. She said, oh, no carbon tax under my government. Came in carbon tax, and it's devastating the Australian bloody economy. And I'd say to Greens, and I'd say to environmentalists, get your bloody arse in gear and realise what's real and what is manipulated. Because at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, you who have bought this bloody thing, you are demanding the building of your own prison. Now that's fine, but you're demanding the building of mine and my children's as well. On the basis of a bloody blatant lie. Here you go. Follow the Bono. That's a great thing. They say follow the money. I say follow the Bono. He's his mate. There's a few others. Look, you know, follow the Bono. They're all there. Now, there was a film came out earlier this year called Hunger Games. And this encapsulated in so many ways the society where the global warming bollocks is supposed to take us through justification. Of course, if you look at the symbol of the film, it's the phoenix, the firebird. For those who haven't seen it, it was a world sometime in the future of enormous total control, where different sectors were fenced off and people were not allowed to go in most of the land of the country, and they were controlled from something called the Capitol, which was an elite that was served by all the poor people and hungry people around the country. They had games every year where two young people were picked from each sector who had to fight on live television, and the one who won was the one that stayed alive after all the others were killed. The idea was to kill all the others and win the game. As Dr. Richard Day said in 1969, violence, pornography and obscenity in the media and movies will be increased to desensitize people to violence and porn and make them feel life is short, precarious and brutish. And the Hunger Games was a classic, but it was more than that. It was a symbol of the society that we're heading towards so fast. This was one of the elite in the Capitol, the equivalent of what people call the 1%, although, as I say, the real control is in far fewer than that. And we have a version of the Hunger Games, and it's called Agenda 21 Sustainable Development, and it is being orchestrated outside or through the United Nations, and it is a stalking horse, a Trojan horse for world fascism, as I'm going to go through and explain. Agenda 21 was agreed at the 1992 Earth Summit in Brazil, which was headed by this guy, Maurice Strong, one of the gang big time, a mate of Al Gore. And he said, Maurice Strong, this billionaire oil man, etc., he said, isn't the only hope for the planet that the industrialized civilizations collapse? Isn't it our responsibility to bring this about? What they are trying to do and planning to do is use saving the environment, which these buggers are destroying, to justify deindustrialization and the end of democracy and democratic, which is another thing I could talk about. Democracy and freedom, interchangeable? Don't think so. Anyway, this is the wish list in documents for Agenda 21 operating through the United Nations. An end to national sovereignty, all justified by saving the world, by the way. An end to national sovereignty. State planning and management of all land resources, ecosystems, deserts, forests, mountains, oceans and fresh water. Agriculture, rural development, biotechnology and ensuring equity, equal slavery. The state is to define the role of business and financial resources. Abolition of private property is not sustainable, they say. Here we go again. How many times has this come up? Restructuring the family unit, children to be raised by the state, people told, this is what Aldous Huxley said in Brave New World, people told what their job will be, major restrictions on movement, creation of human settlement zones, I'll get to them in a minute, mass resettlement as people are forced to vacate land where they live, for reasons I'm coming to, dumbing down education, achieved a long time ago, mass global depopulation in pursuit of all of the above. And what they're doing to hide it is they're setting Agenda 21 organizations up in all local communities, all over the world, America, Britain, all over the place, and they're giving the impression that each of these is basically an independent local community initiative, when it's all being orchestrated through this organization, through the United Nations, called Local Governments for Sustainability. So when I came across all this stuff, I thought I'll have a look at the Isle of Wight, a few miles by a few miles, and I found that the Isle of Wight joined Agenda 21 in November 2000. And it says on the Agenda 21 Isle of Wight website that it was developed and written in partnership with the people of the Isle of Wight and reflects their vision for the future of the island. Ever since I saw that, I have been asking everyone I meet on the Isle of Wight, have you ever heard of Agenda 21? No, mate, no, mate, no, mate. Nobody's heard of it. And yet, it was the people. This is going on all over the world. And they openly talk in some of these organizations connected to it about the post-democratic, post-industrial world, which is basically symbolized in so many movies recently that are putting this stuff in. Now, Zbigniew Brzezinski, big mentor of Barack Obama, one of the demo cons, he was the national security advisor to Jimmy Carter, and he wrote in another of his prophetic books, because he knows what's coming, called America's Role in the Technotronic Era, 1970. The Technotronic Era involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled society. Such a society would be dominated by an elite unrestrained by traditional values. Soon it will be possible to assert almost continuous surveillance over every citizen and maintain up-to-date, complete files containing even the most personal information about the citizen. These files will be subject to instantaneous retrieval by the authorities. 1970 he wrote that. Now, we've had a technocracy, which is defined as government by technicians, specifically management of society by technical experts, including bankers, by the way, that includes. And look at what we've now got in Italy. We have, in one of the biggest economies and major countries of Europe, we have a government with not one elected official in it, headed by this guy, Mario Monti. And we had a situation in Greece where we had this guy, Lucas Papademos, as a banker, leader of the country, never seen a ballot box in his life. This organisation that I mentioned, I know, these bloodlines are bloody good lookers, ain't they? Hey? I blame the inbreeding myself. This is Brzezinski, comes from the planet Zog. And this is David Rockefeller. Now, they co-founded the Trilateral Commission, one of those organizations in that Bilderberg Council on Foreign Relations network with the Club of Rome that I've shown. And it just so happens that Mario Monti, before he became unelected leader of Italy, was the European head of the Trilateral Commission, and Lucas Papademos was a member of it. This is the first step to justifying problems, not least financial, to take away even the right of people to choose their own government, rubbish as most of them are anyway, but at least we've got a right to, at least in theory, choose it, but no choice at all. bringing the technocrats in. This is absolutely in line with Agenda 21. And these bloody politicians in Westminster and all around the world, Capitol Hill, are all kind of, you know, especially on Capitol Hill, bought and bloody paid for. They've got to realize what's real and what is manipulated. Because at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, you who have bought this bloody thing, you are demanding the building of your own prison. Now that's fine, but you're demanding the building of mine and my children's as well. On the basis of a bloody blatant happening in 1889. What happened to unprecedented? And by the way, what happened to the one before that one? What caused it? Turbocharged handcarts? And then NASA came out later and said actually there was a massive cyclone that was responsible for most of it. And then you look at the other end, the Antarctic, and it's a record ice cover in 2012. Live. Here you go. Follow the Bono. That's a great thing. They say follow the money. I say follow the Bono. It's his mate. There's a few others. Look, you know, follow the Bono. They're all there. Now, there was a film came out earlier this year called Hunger Games. And this encapsulated in so many ways the society where the global warming bollocks is supposed to take films with children blowing up because they don't agree with global warming. What a bloody outrage. And then we had this, I love this, we had this big alarmist thing came out recently. Oh, look at Greenland, it's the biggest surface melt, it's unprecedented in Greenland. Same press release. Melting events of this type occur about once every 150 years on average, with the last one. And yet we've got the Colt, and he's in the carbon credits and bloody gravy train. This is lady, the Prime Minister of Australia, Julia Gillard. She said, oh, no carbon tax under my government. Came in carbon tax, and it's devastating the Australian bloody economy. And I'd say to Greens, and I'd say to environmentalists, get your bloody arse in gear and